It's bigger, it's better, it's largely developed in Australia, and it's even cheaper than a Ranger Raptor. This is the HiLux GR Sport. It's the truck that HiLux fans probably thought might never happen, and yet here we are finally driving it. So what's special about it? What has Toyota changed? Is it worth your money? And how does it stack up against its rivals? Well, that's what we're going to find out. Now, before we go on, remember to check out our website, carsguide.com.au, and if you add a /Toyota on the end of that, you'll see all our Toyota news, and I think if you're interested in this truck here, you'll like what you read there too. Let's talk price. So $73,990 before on roads. Now, it is cheaper than a Ranger Raptor, but what's Toyota actually changed underneath to justify this new higher price point? Let's check it out. Does this leave range above for a full-fat GR, maybe with something bigger under the bonnet? Well, maybe that's another story for another time. For now though, this GR Sport does get some significant mechanical changes going on to try and keep the aging HiLux in the fight against its primary Ford Ranger rival, but also an increasing field of upgraded utes like the Nissan Navara Pro 4X and Mitsubishi Triton Xtreme. The additional money you're spending on this grade does score you a slightly upgraded engine tune, more on that later, but the biggest changes are to the suspension, which has been lifted by 15mm and is packed with KYB monotube shocks. You'll also score sensibly sized 17-inch alloys for maximum usability on the rough stuff, disc brakes all round, and a boost to axle articulation thanks to the removal of the rear sway bar. Other upgrades extend to the underbody, including what Toyota calls Dakar-inspired skid plates, heavy-duty rock rails, and rear recovery points. The HiLux has also been boosted in width all round and has a suitably tough-looking body kit with massive over-fenders and a completely new face. Elsewhere, inside, expect the usual high-spec HiLux fare, but with sporty seats and the typical GR leather suede trim. A rally-inspired steering wheel with paddle shifters appears, as well as a premium audio system. It all looks and feels like a lot of truck, but it's not quite Raptor grade, with its primary rival scoring even more capable suspension, a tougher stock tyre package, and of course that massive 3-litre 6-cylinder petrol turbo engine. Geez, she's ugly, but in the best possible way. Everything you see here is inspired by the HiLux Dakar project, and that includes this badge work that works its way across the front here, and this big grille which actually has a little G pattern to sort of reference that GR relationship. It is quite open though, so good luck cleaning all the bugs out of your radiator there. Under here, you've also got this silver plate, again inspired by that HiLux Dakar truck. Maybe we can show you a picture of that. And as you work your way around here, obviously the body's quite a bit wider to accommodate those new big wheels, and you've got these functional vents here which actually wash the air across and wash them across those big aerodynamic alloy wheels as well. So let's walk down the side and check those out. Now, as you work your way around the sides here, those vents do feed across those alloy wheels, as we mentioned. They're 17 inches, and I actually reckon they look kind of small on this design. I'd like to see a bit more tyre, maybe fill these arches a bit more, but anyway, that's just my opinion. And you've got these nice big fender flares, which really give the truck a tough look. It's almost like a Coke bottle aspect as it widens in the front and then widens in the rear again. As you work your way down the side, you've got these rock sliders / side steps down here. Toyota does tell us they're fully functional, so they're 2mm thick steel and they will support the entire weight of the truck with 4 people in it, or so Toyota tells us. And as you work your way around the back, it's a little bit less hectic. It's a little bit more normal HiLux back there, aside from a GR tub in the tray. It does look a little patched together in the same way a rally truck is. It ain't pretty, but it does look mean, and it's certainly unique from every other HiLux on the road. Here in the cab of the HiLux GR Sport, you do have mostly the same sort of layout as the rest of the HiLux range, but with a few little touches here and there. So if you're expecting something different, well, you won't find that. There is a nice kind of updated steering wheel with leather trim on it and rally-inspired touches like the little red at 12 o'clock. There's some inserts in the dash here and a silver theme for the dial cluster as well. But the biggest upgrade to the overall aesthetic of this cabin is these seats, which are nice and soft. They've got extra bolstering on the sides, which is good when you're being thrown about a bit if you're taking it off-road, and they have the same sort of theme as the rest of the GR range with the sort of leather and suede finishes, but no kind of silver trimming like you get in the GR Corolla. Now, in terms of practicality, you do get two large cup holders down here, a nice bay, good for a phone, but no wireless charger. And there's a nice sort of empty space here, good for phones, wallets, keys, you name it too. And this padded armrest box, which is a decent sort of depth. In the door here, you've got a pocket with a bottle holder, which is nice too. Although there is kind of an abundance of hard plastics all through this cabin, even in the doors and everything. And the overall sort of aesthetic is starting to look a little dated in this HiLux. It is quite old now. And as well, I've got to say the digital sort of features in here aren't maybe where they should be because of that. So you've got kind of a small screen here. It is nice with Apple CarPlay though, and only a small screen in that dash as well. No head-up display. So worth keeping in mind, it's not the most up-to-date when it comes to tech either. Let's take a look in the back seat. Okay, back seat. Not as good as it could be if I'm being honest. That's behind my own driving position, and as you can see, pretty limited knee room for me, pretty limited room for my feet here as well. I am sitting real high up and my head is pretty close to the roof, although that's just enough room for me there. There is some practicality benefits here though. You can flip these seats up if you do need to have a bit more of an open space for putting something like, I don't know, pot plant in here, and you can flip them down as well. And practicality wise, you get a bottle holder in the door, some map pockets there, some adjustable air vents, but there's no power outlets or climate zone back here. There's some little hooks about the place, which are kind of nice to have too. And in the drop down here, it's nice and padded. Two more bottle holders there as well. One of the key wins for the HiLux GR Sport is that despite modifications to its suspension, it maintains its solid payload and towing capacities. The towing package also comes standard on the GR Sport, complete with a tow ball and 7-pin wiring harness. Those keen to get on the rough stuff will also be able to make use of standard rear recovery points, while the front recovery points are able to be added with the addition of a genuine accessory bull bar option. Toyota has deliberately avoided adding a sports bar or any particular upgrades to the tray, as the brand understands that most users will go to town on tray modifications anyway. The only standard addition is a GR branded tub liner. All right, sorry HiLux fans, if you're expecting something a bit more competitive with that 3-litre V6 that sits in the Ranger, you won't get it here. It is the same 2.8-litre 4-cylinder turbo diesel engine that appears in the rest of the HiLux range, although this one has an ECU remap to make it slightly more powerful, and it actually does make a meaningful difference behind the wheel. We'll talk about that in a sec. The HiLux is less a performance truck and more an off-road focused hero then, with most significant modifications being to its raised suspension, underbody protection, and the removal of that rear sway bar to allow for better articulation, as well as its wider track. Let's see how it fares from behind the wheel. Okay, we're taking the GR HiLux for a bit of a spin, and the first thing you'll notice straight away is that additional ride height. This truck definitely feels a lot taller than a stock HiLux, or even a lot taller than a lot of other utes on the market, and that's despite only a 15mm increase in that ride height. It does feel like you're peering down over things, and you can also feel the width of this truck. It does feel quite substantial in terms of both how wide that front axle is and its stance on the road, so it feels as aggressive as it looks. Now, with those changes to both the track and the ride height, there comes some significant changes to the on-road handling as well. This truck's got some interesting characteristics. That signature HiLux heavy steering is still there, or maybe even heavier than it is before. But when you steer it into a corner, you get some interesting results. For a start, when you tip it in without any pressure on the accelerator, it will understeer a little bit, and there's a lot of tire torture going on at the front. But if you do put your foot on that accelerator coming out of a corner, you might get quite a bit of unexpected oversteer. And that's because the additional power from that engine, that little 10%, well, it actually arrives really early in the rev range. So this car will kick out a little bit. Again, a little bit of tire torture going on with those all-terrains on a tarmac surface coming out of a corner. So look, on-road, it might not be the best truck, but where it shines is when you get it off-road. And that's because all those big changes that Toyota has made underneath, so that means the extra articulation you get from removing that sway bar at the back, it's really excellent. This truck does shine in that situation. We took it on an off-road track yesterday, and I was genuinely surprised with the amount of clearance this truck has, with the way it dealt with really quite deep potholes and really steep inclines as well. As you dip those wheels into those deep trenches, I just kept expecting there to be that crunch, bit of underbody drag, maybe the diff catching on something, but there was nothing like that. It really was truly impressive. We've also had a bit of rock climbing, kind of low range activity, and this truck handles pretty well there as well. You do get a little bit of bunny hopping through the whole drivetrain when you're in that lower kind of speed, that lower kind of gear. And with the suspension as well, if you've driven a HiLux before, you probably know that it is a bit firm, it is a bit jiggly, it is a bit busy, and all of those traits are still there, both on and off the road. So you will get quite a bit of bouncing around. It throws you about in the chair a bit, which is why these side bolsters on the updated seat are quite welcome. But it's just not the most pleasant ute to drive in those kinds of scenarios. Yes, it is very, very capable, and that's the purpose of having maybe some firm kind of controlled suspension in those situations, but it also has its downsides as well. And it is more pronounced when you're driving it around on road. As you can see, it's jiggling me about quite a bit here, and we're just on like a bit of tarmac. So those unpleasant characteristics of the stock HiLux really are still present despite those upgrades to the suspension. Now, of course, one characteristic that this truck has that its Ranger rival maybe isn't so good at is the fact that it maintains that payload and that towing ability despite its upgrades to off-road ability. And that means you've got the ability to build this truck into a bit of a tourer. Maybe you want to put some weight in the back, put a canopy, maybe you want to put a tent on the back, maybe you want to do a lot more towing around the country. This car can still do that. And to me, that's a big advantage over something like a Ranger Raptor. So where does that leave our HiLux GR Sport? Well, I think it's interesting because you have to pick a truck for your purpose. If you want something that's excellent off-road, well, you can do much worse than this. This is really quite impressive when you get it on a kind of mud plugging environment. Or if you want to build a truck that can also do a bit of touring, so you want to put a tent on the back, bit of weight, maybe you're going to tow as well. But if you want to go real fast, you want to make loud noises, you want a bit of that extra refinement, then maybe the Ranger Raptor's a better choice. So you really do have to pick the right truck for your needs. This truck has a specific skill set and it is focused around that off-road ability. So just keep that in mind. Okay, fuel consumption. So here's the official number on your screen now, and this truck's been doing a bunch of filming and off-roading and all sorts of stuff today. So it's probably not a fair number, but I'm seeing 10.6 litres to 100 Ks on the dash here. Look, could be worse. We want to get this truck in again, obviously, for a longer test so we can give you a bit more of a fair fuel consumption number, but hey, you can see that's what we've gotten today. Safety equipment is on par with the previous range-topping road grade, meaning you score the core stuff like auto emergency braking, lane keep assist and blind spot tech, as well as adaptive cruise control alongside 7 airbags. The HiLux range was rated a maximum 5 ANCAP stars in 2019, although the GR Sport grade is not included in this rating. All right, ownership. So the usual 5-year warranty applies. Keep in mind, if you do keep servicing this truck with Toyota, you will extend that engine warranty out to 7 years, which is quite nice as well. So you're not all limited into that little 5-year gap. But possibly the most annoying continuing thing about the HiLux is, yeah, okay, you buy it for the reliability perspective, but you do have to service it every 6 months or 10,000 Ks, which is annoyingly frequent, especially if you're putting a lot of Ks on. So, hey, it's another thing you might want to keep in mind. The first 6 services covering 3 years and 60,000 kilometers cost a fixed $290 each, which does add up on a yearly basis. Okay, so here's the thing. There's enough of the base version of the HiLux in this GR Sport version that if you're not already a fan, you might not be convinced with what's on offer here. It's certainly no Ranger Raptor direct rival, but that's not to say it's not a huge amount of fun and the most capable HiLux you can buy right now. There's also something to be said for having all this ability while not compromising your towing or your payload. What do you think? Would you buy something like this or something like the Navara Pro 4X Warrior or the Mitsubishi Triton Xtreme or indeed the Ranger Raptor? Tell us what you think in the comments below and make sure to check out our full review at carsguide.com.au.